Hey, happy almost Thanksgiving for those celebrating. I just want to jump in here really quick before today's episode and let you know that I'm offering 40% off all of my digital programs and guides over on Healthful Pursuit. That includes 6-week keto weight loss, happy keto body, keto bundle, everything. You guys can go to healthfulpursuit.com/cyber sale. That'll direct you right to my shop. Choose what you want, load up your cart, and then use the code CYBER, that's all in caps, CYBER, to get 40% off. Again, that's healthfulpursuit.com/cyber sale. Use the code CYBER for 40% off. The code will be valid until November 30th, so enjoy. Welcome to the Keto Diet Podcast, the show all about keto for women so you can burn fat, balance your hormones, and heal your body. Starting and maintaining keto can be challenging without the right support. So just for listening to the podcast, I want to give you 20% off the keto beginning with the coupon code Keto Podcast. That's all one word. This 30-day program gives you a clear step-by-step how-to so you can quickly adapt to a ketogenic diet, avoid common struggles, and get the results you crave. Go to healthfulpursuit.com/begin to get your keto beginning discount today. If you're new around these parts, I'm Leanne Vogel. You may know me as the international best-selling author of The Keto Diet, founder of happyketobody.com, or maybe you know me as the nutritionist that likes dipping pork rinds in avocado oil mayo. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Thanks so much for listening. Hey, Dr. Jockers, what's up?
Hey, Leanne. So great to be on with you. I was just telling you that we had our baby girl. We named her Joyful. We just had her 2 weeks ago. So
amazing.
Beautiful home birth.
I didn't even ask for her name. That is an amazing name.
Yeah, Joyful Christine, because I always like the name Joy. And my wife came up with Joyful, and I'm like, I've never met somebody with that name, but like that's exactly the kind of energy I want her to bring to the world. So just makes sense.
Oh, she's set up for success.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. That is so cool. For listeners that may not be familiar with you, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so my name's Dr. David Jockers, and I am a doctor of natural medicine and doctor of chiropractic and a nutritionist, and really got into the health space in general because I was an athlete growing up. I always wanted to improve my performance, and one thing led to another, and I became a personal trainer, and then kind of watched some personal tragedy with my grandfather. I struggled with health issues, and my mom was always into natural health. And so whenever I had a question, I would always go to her, start asking her what to do. She always grew her own food, and she's actually a naturopath now. Growing up, she was a massage therapist. She was kind of studying natural medicine, and it just kind of evoked my curiosity, and I decided I wanted to become a chiropractor. And I went to Life University in Atlanta, Georgia, and just started studying. I loved the philosophy that the body could heal itself. I loved everything to do with nutrition, movement, taking care of the spine and the nervous system. And actually, while I was, really right as I was getting going with graduate school, I actually developed irritable bowel syndrome. And so I actually lost 30 pounds, and I'm thin as it is. I went from 165 pounds down to 135 pounds. And really was struggling with my gut. No matter how much I ate, I couldn't put any weight on. I couldn't put any muscle mass on. I was fatigued. I had a condition called orthostatic hypotension, where I go from sitting to standing, and I would get really, really dizzy. And I was in graduate school, and my colleagues, people around me, were concerned about it. And I came across some books, and Joe Mercola, drmercola.com, The Maker's Diet from Jordan Rubin. I started reading these books, and I went on a low carb diet, and along with chiropractic care and really focusing on good sleep and just good lifestyle. And I was able to overcome that, gain the weight back, and really got my energy and my life back. And so from there, I was just even more passionate about teaching these principles to people. And I got out of school at 27 and opened my own clinic on credit cards. And the economy had crashed, and so I couldn't get a business loan. So I took out every form of credit that I could, opened my clinic, and it was like a build it and they will come type mentality. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just hustled like crazy and had a lot of success by the world's standards. But I was working 80-hour weeks. I was actually, Leanne, living in my clinic and showering across the street at a 24-hour gym. Because, I was a single guy at the time, very low maintenance. And so I was like, I was going to work all the time anyways. And that's what I was doing. And I actually developed skin cancer. And so I was being successful. I was living a healthier lifestyle than most people, but I was overwhelming my system. And there were just a lot of things that were out of balance. And, I was working so hard. I would come home at night and I would binge on you'll laugh at this, Ezekiel bread with coconut oil and blueberries or something along those lines.
Amazing.
And so this was in 2011. And I started researching. I knew I needed to change my life. And fortunately, I was able to buy a house and kind of get out of my clinic and get away from some of the toxic things. Like I was sleeping right under where the power panel is in the back of my office. So you think about the electromagnetic frequency stress. I was showering in a gym with chlorinated water. So it was all these different things. So I created more balance in my life. Started really working on myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because I was really led by a fear of failure at the time. And so I was really started to work and look into that and just work on myself in that area. And nutritionally, I was doing research and I came across the ketogenic diet. And I had never really heard of that term. Going through medical school, I had heard of ketoacidosis and I had heard of ketones, but it was like just briefly in passing. And I have a master's degree in sports nutrition, and we really didn't talk about it at all. And so I started looking into this. And in fact, the interview I was looking at and an article I was reading online was from Dr. Thomas Seyfried. And he is one of the top researchers in really this idea that cancer is it's really a metabolic disease. And I picked up his book, which is something along those lines, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. And I started reading that and I was like so fascinated by it. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. And I started doing that, following that approach along with the whole lifestyle. And I was able to overcome that skin cancer. I had this big welt, and it's kind of a long story how it developed. But, in a matter of 3 or 4 months, it completely went away. And so I just felt like, gosh, I had victory over this condition. And my grandfather actually died from metastatic skin cancer. So it's in my family. I grew up in Florida on the beach, surfing, and just being exposed to way more sun, just being sun damaged more than somebody should be. And I just saw the power of nutrition and lifestyle there. And so from there, I started holding cancer seminars and just teaching people this lifestyle, and have seen so many remarkable breakthroughs in a number of different health conditions, as well as just people optimizing their performance on a daily basis. And that's really what keto means to me, is just this high level performance on a daily basis allows me to really be the best doctor, the best husband, the best father, the best everything in my life, because I'm a fat burner, and I'm really just running on really clean fuel all day long. So that's kind of a long answer there, but I guess that will get us started.
Yeah. And you know what's great? My next question, which I ask all guests, is what does keto mean to you? So you already answered that question. It's like you knew it was coming up. I think it's such an important question. And it's so cool to see how keto means something completely different for each and every single person. I love asking that question, and I had no idea of your story. I think that that's so amazing that you were able to use the ketogenic diet and also be intuitive to know that the place that you were in, like living out of your practice, was not beneficial for your overall health. But so cool that you trusted the universe and was like, I'm just going to figure this out. It'll just work itself out. Because that can be a terrifying leap to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's really where the chiropractic philosophy helped me, which was this idea that, live without fear. It's like there's natural rhythms in the universe, in nature, and in our bodies. And, when we're out of balance with that, dis-ease, right? Dis-ease comes, and then eventually disease comes. And so I just needed to get back in balance and, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because we're a mind, body, and spirit all coalescing together. So, the ketogenic diet really helps with that. And because there's, ketogenic diet, when you've got elevated ketones, it really allows your brain to function so much better. So mentally and spiritually, you're able to go deeper and dig out some false beliefs there too.
I'm glad that you mentioned the spiritually, because I just call it keto magic. After eating keto for a while, it's just like
all of a sudden I started thinking differently about life in general, just like how I interacted with people, how I thought about myself. And I never really had that ability before. Is that kind of what you mean by the spiritually piece?
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at keto, we know that it helps regulate the glutamate to GABA balance, which are two neurotransmitters. And glutamate's kind of an excitatory neurotransmitter, allows us to think sharply and quickly. We need that because we want to think sharply and quickly. We want to be able to react to stress. But GABA helps calm our brain, helps relax our brain, so it doesn't overexcite itself and we don't end up with anxiety and things like that. And most of us in our society, because we have such a hot, fast-paced society, most of us are under stress. We're just firing glutamate, and we've got a bad ratio of glutamate to GABA. And people will even supplement with GABA and see really good results. It'll help reduce anxiety. A lot of anti-anxiety medications help support the GABA pathways, help them sleep better, help reduce headaches, things like that. Well, ketones naturally have this effect of creating balance and stability there. So you get the benefits of thinking sharply and quickly without overexciting yourself. You've got less inflammation in your brain, so it allows you to, in a sense, unlock some of your dormant potential. I think there's incredible potential within us as humans, but a lot of it lies dormant because we're so, living out of a fast-paced society, just a fear-based society, and we're constantly in fight or flight. And so this ketones in our brain and following this sort of a lifestyle really helps balance that and open up that dormant potential.
That's amazing. And how you mentioned fast-paced and fear-based society. What do you do on a daily basis now that you're a dad and you own a business? Like, how do you maintain that balance for yourself?
I have no idea, but balance, what's that, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think it just starts with my default mentality and just constantly focusing on gratitude and having an overcomer spirit. Yeah, at this point in my life, I have 3 businesses, 3 kids, right? And 3 kids under 3, right? So I don't know how I'm doing it, but it's just one of those things where I constantly am reminding myself how grateful I am for where I am in life and for what God's got in store for me for the future. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And then surrounding myself with really good people. When it comes to businesses, I just try to empower all my employees as much as possible, let them know how much I appreciate them. With my wife and I have a phenomenal relationship. We're always speaking words of life over each other. I know if she's getting upset at me, it's because she doesn't feel loved or heard, right? I already know exactly what I'm not doing. And so I just try to really anchor in on that. Of course, the kids are, my 2 little 2.5-year-olds are running around all over the place. And I just try to realize they're going to be kids. It's just who they are. It's what they're going to be. I need to either embrace it or I'm going to, only cause more harm to myself. So I just try to embrace it the best that I can. And, this ketogenic lifestyle, just living a healthy lifestyle, waking up in gratitude. I love to move and exercise. I hydrate my body really, really well. I eat really well. I take supplements. I get chiropractic care. I know that my body is a high performance machine and I want to make sure the fuel is good. I want to make sure that I'm getting, my system checked on a regular basis and making sure everything is working well, because I have got in my, obviously for me, the most important job in the world, every single day, I've got so many people counting on me. I've got to show up at 100%. And so I think that's huge. And really good sleep habits as well. Trying to get to bed early. So important. Poor sleep really throws me off. So better that I can have good sleep habits. That's a huge component to being able to show up each and every day.
Hemp hearts. Let's first talk about why they are so unique in a class of nuts and seeds. Well, they're actually considered a seed, and how they make the perfect addition to your diet. Hemp hearts are rich in fats, but not just any fats, the good, healthy ones. The ones you want to fill your diet with to help reduce inflammation, support joint health, and balance hormones. Hemp hearts have 6 times the omega-3 of raw tuna, 4 times the omega-3s as most fish oil supplements, and they're rich in fiber, promoting gut health and helping aid digestion. They're also a rich source of plant-based protein containing 10 grams of protein per 30-gram serving. What's unique about hemp hearts is, unlike many plant-based protein sources, they contain all 20 amino acids and all of the 9 essential amino acids, making hemp hearts one of the best plant-based protein sources, or if you ask me, the best. Hemp hearts are rich in micronutrients such as iron, magnesium, B vitamin, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin E. It's said to be nature's multivitamin as it contains high daily value percentages of those micronutrients. Also, for women struggling with hormone health, which is basically every one of us, it also contains GLA, which is extremely healthy for women's hormones. You can go to eatonhemp.com/keto diet. Use the code Keto Diet, all in caps, for 25% off. These are the best of the best hemp hearts that exist, guys, because they're backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, you get your money back. And this company rocks. So if you go to eatonhemp.com/keto diet, use the code Keto Diet, all in caps, for 25% off. Give them a try and let me know what you think. Again, if you don't like them, just contact them and you will get your money back.
And I love that you said, I got to embrace it or it's just going to harm myself. That's something I've been coming to the realization of, especially lately, where I just get frazzled over things and I get focused on things. And I'm like, wait a minute, like this is not benefiting me. And it's just either I just need to embrace it or just not, or know that I'm harming myself. So it's really great that you touched on that. So because we wanted to chat about the benefits of keto, and we've already chatted about a huge major benefit, one of my favorites, which is that spiritual component and just how I'm so much more aligned with myself eating this way. And because this is more of like a beginner's episode, I wanted to kind of focus on how keto works in the body and then kind of morph into the changes we might see in our body after adopting a ketogenic diet.
Yep. So basically, when we're on a standard American diet, like the way that I grew up, in the morning, I'd wake up, I was always hungry, and I would go and I would eat a bowl of Cheerios, right? Or something like that. Cheerios with bananas and orange juice and skim milk, because, Cheerios are healthy. That was like, American Heart Association approved. Bananas, of course, that's a fruit. Orange juice, lots of vitamin C. And of course, we want to stay away from fat. So we use skim milk. And, so anyways, I would do that. And of course, all those things would just turn into sugar in my system. Blood sugar would go way up. And then this hormone called insulin comes out. And insulin's job is basically to get sugar out of the bloodstream, because high blood sugar is neurotoxic. You think about somebody with uncontrolled diabetes where they can't clear the sugar out of their bloodstream. And what happens? The sugar molecules actually bind to proteins in the body, and they create something called an advanced glycolytic enzyme. And so for the listeners, advanced starts with the A, glycolytic starts with the G, and enzyme starts with the E. So if we take those three letters, AGE, that spells ages. So that will tell you exactly what that does to you. It accelerates the aging process, and it damages the kidneys. So people with uncontrolled diabetes, oftentimes they develop kidney failure, damages the endothelial lining, the internal lining of the blood vessels. So these individuals are at risk for heart disease. It damages the nerves. So they develop peripheral neuropathy, optic neuritis, where they lose their vision, dementia, Alzheimer's. They're calling type 3 diabetes because it's characterized by this neuroinflammation from these AGEs. So insulin has this huge job of getting the sugar, getting it into the cells so we don't form all these AGEs. Now, the unfortunate thing is insulin also does some other things. When insulin is elevated, it's like this master hormone. It tells the body store, store, store. That means store fat. So it's going to end up causing, for somebody that's genetically inclined, like for me, I won't really get fat, but for other individuals, they're going to get much larger. For me, I just won't be able to gain muscle. I'll be like a skinny fat if I have high insulin. And insulin also triggers cell reproduction. So we know that certain chronic diseases like cancer are characterized by high levels of cell reproduction. So when we have high levels of insulin because we're eating these, high carbohydrate foods, then we're going to get accelerated cell reproduction. There's also more inflammation. Insulin actually triggers certain genetic pathways. So these are kind of amplifiers in the body, like literally, an alarm system that the whole city can hear that are saying, create inflammation, our body's in danger, create inflammation. And that's what ends up happening. We end up getting chronic inflammation when we continually do this. And so when we go on a ketogenic diet, it's a very low carb, high fat diet. And so with that, we really don't elevate our blood sugar much when we consume food. And so we get very little amount of insulin. And therefore, because insulin stays low, we don't get the inflammation. We don't get the fat storage. Our body actually now says, I need to use another fuel source other than sugar because I don't have enough blood sugar. And so it'll start to actually adapt and not only use the dietary fat, the fat we're eating from foods, but also our own body fat. Because when insulin is down, the body says, okay, I need to burn my storage. I need to jump into my bank account and look at my savings account. And the savings account is our stored body fat. And it will start to break that down, mobilize it, and utilize that for energy. While it's doing that, the body has to do several things. Number one, within every cell of our body, the factory that breaks down breaks down fatty acids and produces energy from them is called a mitochondria. And the mitochondria our body's going to actually create more of these mitochondria so we can produce more energy. And so it's a process called mitochondrial biogenesis. And that actually gives our body better potential to produce cellular energy, which is really powerful. So we actually increase the amount of mitochondria. Now, exercise will also increase mitochondria. The cool thing is the ketogenic diet, without even exercising, will increase the amount of these mitochondria. The more mitochondria, the healthier the cell. And so without even exercising, we can do that. Obviously, if we combine those, we're going to get a really powerful stimulus for the cell. And that's going to help protect our genome from oxidative stress and other issues like that. And so we get good at burning fat. So we no longer are the sugar burner. When we're a sugar burner, we're dependent upon regular feedings. Every few hours, we need to bump up our blood sugar because our sugar is going up and down, right? Sugar goes up, insulin comes out, takes the sugar into the cells. Now sugar goes down. The body says, oh, this is stressful. Sugar's going down. We may be starving. So now it sends signals that give us cravings. We get hangry, irritable. It's a symptom called, or a condition called hypoglycemia that we end up developing. And we're constantly depending. We're constantly hungry. We have cravings. We don't feel good. Our energy is fluctuating. As opposed to when we're in ketosis, then we can go very long periods of time without food. That oftentimes we don't even think about food that much. And we don't have the hunger and the cravings. Our blood sugar stays really, really stable. We get that mental and emotional balance that we were talking about. And our body is good at burning body fat, so we'll take on the kind of physique over time that we want to, because our body's just going to start to break down that body fat. And especially if we couple it with other healthy lifestyle activities, it's going to really help us take on that lean, optimal physique that we want.
And what we often talk about, like physical changes, and we chatted a little bit about the changes that happen inside, like lowered blood sugar, lowered inflammation. But I feel like there's this huge thing, and I don't know if you experience it too, where people are like, I started keto 3 weeks ago and nothing's happening. This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. Do you come across that, and kind of what's your way to combat that, where people are just thinking it'll happen tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a sense, when we are trying to get keto adapted or fat adapted, or our body is adapted to running off of its own body fat, there is an adaptation process that needs to take place. And we kind of, in some ways, get into this metabolic middle ground where our body was really dependent on glucose, and it had upregulated all the different metabolic machinery in order to break down glucose. Now we're not providing the blood sugar that it needs. So it's got to retrain itself and learn how to use fat for fuel. And for some individuals, if they're more metabolically flexible, if their bodies are healthier, it can be a fairly quick process. It can take 5 to 10 days, maybe. For other individuals, it can take a few weeks. So it just really depends on your metabolic flexibility and the health of your system when you first get in. Now, there's another condition. This is especially, I see this with people that, are just making certain mistakes or not thinking through exactly how to follow their ketogenic diet properly. And that's called the Keto Flu, where you feel really hungover, you have leg cramps, you have sometimes heart arrhythmias where your heart's just pounding out of your chest. you feel really really hungover and maybe trouble sleeping, things like that. And oftentimes there's a couple things associated with this. Number one, the individual can be overstressed. They may be exercising too much, not following good sleep habits. They may have a really, really stressful family life or stressful job. And whenever you're trying to make a major lifestyle change, you want to reduce other stresses in your life. Okay, a lifestyle change is stressful on your body. In fact, stress makes us stronger when it's done appropriately. But if your body's overwhelmed by stress, you're going to really struggle. So you want to get things in order first. So that person may, again, have too much stress in their life. So that's one big thing. Number two is they may not be consuming enough electrolytes. And this is really important because when your insulin goes down, like it should when you go low carb, then your body actually isn't going to be able to retain electrolytes the way that it should. So insulin is not only is its job to take sugar and put it into the bloodstream or out of the bloodstream and into the cells, but also on top of that to actually retain sodium in the body. And so when insulin goes down, we start to excrete more sodium and we can end up with a lot of different electrolyte issues. Okay, electrolyte imbalances, which can lead to dizziness, feeling like we've got the flu, trouble sleeping, arrhythmias, all different types of issues like that. So that's another really, really big factor with this. And then the other thing would just be bouts of hypoglycemia where the blood sugar is dropping too low. So I typically, with certain individuals, if they're not metabolically fit to begin with, will not have them do things like high intensity exercise, intermittent fasting, and a ketogenic diet all at once. I don't find that to be helpful for most people when they first get started. Much better off just consuming meals every 3 to 4 hours for somebody that tends to struggle with hypoglycemia every 3 to 4 hours, but just change out the foods. Take out the high carbohydrate foods and replace those with higher healthy fat foods like avocados, olives, olive oil, grass-fed butter, and eggs, different things like that. So that's typically a big change that I'll make. Now, a second part of that question would be somebody that's maybe having a weight loss plateau, and that can be a number of different factors as well. As a functional medicine doctor, I will look at people's thyroid, and I oftentimes see people with low thyroid function to begin with that was never really either diagnosed or treated properly. And so there are certain medications or supplements that people can take that can really support thyroid hormone production and get the thyroid boosts that they need to kind of get them over a plateau that they may be experiencing. And when your thyroid is expressing itself at the cell at the appropriate level, it makes a big, huge difference in how you feel. I mean, things like hair loss for women, dry skin, coldness, just cold extremities, constipation, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes these are related to poor thyroid hormone expression that was either, again, never diagnosed or just underdiagnosed or never treated properly. So these are our key factors we got to address.
Remember that time I had the guys on from Formula episode 301 where we talked about our experiences with ADD and ADHD and how big a game changer nootropics have been for us? If you're struggling with your brain, difficulty focusing, unpredictable energy dips, quick to get distracted, you may benefit big time from taking nootropics as we have. My favorite nootropics brand, Formula, has just changed their name to Thesis, and they're offering 15% off to listeners of the podcast. Now, you might be wondering, Leanne, what's a nootropic? Well, they're nutrients proven to improve brain performance. Some call them cognitive enhancers or smart drugs, quote unquote. With nootropics, I've boosted my focus, energy, attention span, concentration for long periods of time, getting distracted much less frequently. I'm far more productive. I find myself procrastinating and putting things off less. I've been testing nootropics, and for the past year, I've been using Thesis exclusively. safely. You can visit their website, takethesis.com. You'll take a short assessment, and based on their data set, you'll be recommended 4 nootropic variations to test in your first month. You can then schedule a time to speak with a nootropics coach from their team anytime to help you find the optimal formulations for your brain chemistry. Then they will customize your orders with the formulations that work best for your goals and your physiology. Go to takethesis.com and use the code KETO for 15% off. Again, that's takethesis.com with the code KETO.
I'm glad that you mentioned the thyroid piece, because that was a huge, when I discovered that I had been hypothyroid for years and no doctor told me, and then I fixed my thyroid. I mean, I'm a totally different human.
It makes such a big difference, doesn't it? I mean, it's night and day difference.
It's night and day difference. And I mean, it's very rare that I forget my thyroid medication in the morning, because unfortunately my thyroid is beyond help at this point, and it's where I am right now with taking medication. I take desiccated thyroid. If the off chance that I forget it, it's like once a year that I forget it for one day. I'll go like 1 hour. I'll be like, something's not right. Like my brain is kind of not right, and my energy's weird. Just everything is off. My digestion is weird, and it's so sudden. It's a slight little change, but it's amazing how long people can go. And I think a lot of women, especially that I've talked to, are like ashamed to get help with their thyroid. I don't know what that's about. Do you see that in your practice, where people just don't think it's important?
Well, I don't really see that people don't think it's important, but I think that oftentimes, especially in our world, because we're helping people with nutrition and supplements and things like that, a lot of times people have a negative slant towards anything that's a prescription. And they're like, well, I don't want to take the Synthroid or whatever it is. Now, when it comes to thyroid, I definitely have I definitely would recommend trying some sort of a desiccated form like you're doing, like Armor Thyroid or Nature Thyroid or something like that. And you can even do supplements. Like there's glandulars that you can get. I know I sell one that I've seen remarkable results with, prescription based, and people getting awesome results with. However, sometimes, if somebody's feeling good and they're taking Synthroid and they're like, this is really helpful me, I'm like all for it. I'm like, great, take that and support the rest of your body. You got to really, not all medications, I mean, you want to minimize the amount that you're on, of course, right? But, in the case of thyroid, you definitely want to get the right thyroid support. I think it's just, it's vital. And you are, as you know, Leanne, you're not alone. There's so many women that are just not diagnosed. The thyroid is not looked at, or it's not looked at thoroughly enough, or the ranges that the doctors are looking at. They're just not even, most clinical medicine doctors, not functional medicine doctors, we're really well trained typically on thyroid conditions, whereas in clinical medicine, they're really not trained very well in that area, and they typically don't address it very well.
Yeah, it's really sad. And also even the ranges, I spoke to somebody today about his free T3, and he thrives at 2.9. And if I'm at a 2.9, I'm like in my bed, not moving, can't even think. My hair is falling out. My skin is flaking off. I'm not a happy camper. I do really good at 6.5. But when I get my thyroid tested by a regular doctor and they see 6.5, they're like, what are you doing? It's too high. You got to lower it. I'm like, no, I don't feel good at 6. I don't feel good at 5.5. I don't feel good at 6.7. My number is 6.5. So it's also like those ranges are really challenging too. So it's nice to work with a functional doctor where you can like have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I think, the labs should really give us a starting place, but ultimately we've got to actually treat the individual, and that's really what it's all about. And the great thing about you, Leanne, is through the years, and it took you a while to get there, but you've basically earned a master's degree in your own health. You've mastered your own health. And that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, really the path to lifelong wellness is getting a master's degree in your own health. So if you went to college to get a degree, you would spend a lot of time, money, and energy in order to get that. But at the end of the day, you would have some sort of a trade or some sort of a degree that you would have with you for the rest of your life. And when it comes to your health, it's the same process. You're not a pill away from great health. You're mastering. You've got to learn how to master the rhythms of your body and figure out exactly what you need at this season of life. And that just comes with trial and error. And it comes through, listening to podcasts like this and engaging, getting books. Like your book is awesome. I recommend it all the time, whether it's getting, keto programs and different things like that to help, just help you learn and understand and see what other people are dealing with, and kind of understand the rhythms that your body and the messages your body is giving you. Over time, you're going to develop that level of mastery.
Yeah. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I didn't care about my body and I didn't want to know, I didn't want to master much of anything. And I think a lot of people have the belief that there's just one thing that they can do. Like, if you eat coconut oil once a day, every day for the rest of your life, you'll be the healthiest human being. And that's all you need to do. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. But do you ever run across clients that are like, I don't want to be a master of my diet. Like, that's why I hired you. Like, just figure it out. Tell me what to do. I don't care. Do you ever come across that energy?
Well, certainly. I think, the passivity is, that, and especially the older generation, I think, was trained in that, hey, just do exactly what the doctor says and that's it. Never question it. What I'm seeing is more and more people in the younger generation, and even some of the baby boomers now are starting to say, hey, I know this is the information age. I can get information anywhere. I need a coach. And I try to explain that with my patients that, hey, I'm a coach. I'm not just going to tell you, okay, just do this and that's it. And, and we've got to understand, so a lot of it's troubleshooting. So I try to explain it as well as I can up front. And, I think ultimately the greatest lie we can believe is that we're just one thing away from anything in our lives, and typically it's always a process. Any sort of goal that we have in our life, there's always a process. It's always a learning process in order to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Something so simple is always made more complicated as you get into all the tiny little steps that you need to make in order to make that thing happen. It's like anything. You don't just say, I want to go back to college and learn how to do X, Y, Z. Oh, got it. Like you have to go to the classes and you have to learn, and that's just the process. So that's really good. And there was something you said a little while ago, and I just want to go back to it quick because somebody may have heard something different. I just want to reiterate. So you said if somebody has hypoglycemia and they're getting started with the keto diet, they would start eating meals every 3 to 4 hours. I think somebody might hear that and think, oh, if I have hypoglycemia on keto, I need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. So I just want to clarify that I think you meant like eat every 3 to 4 hours as your hypoglycemia figures itself out, and like naturally you'll just stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the adaptation process. So when you first get in, if you have a tendency to have hypoglycemia, I wouldn't recommend fasting right away. I'm a huge advocate of intermittent fasting. I practice it every day, and I do 2 24-hour fasts every week. I'm a huge advocate of it, and I would one of my goals is to help my clients develop the level of metabolic flexibility to where they could do that if they like. But that's not a great place to start if you have a tendency towards hypoglycemia, if you're really stressed, and especially if you start keto and you're struggling with some of that. It's better to create, in a sense, like exercise. You'd want to start with, if you want to run a 5K, yet you have never exercised, you might want to start by just walking a mile. And you may be really sore afterwards. And so you've got to start somewhere. So typically what I'll do, if you're somebody that, and I use questionnaires, or I'll ask in person, I'll say, hey, how do you feel typically, on whatever diet you're on, 4 hours after you eat? How do you feel? Are you hungry? You have cravings? You have headaches? Is your energy dropping? And if they're like, yeah, it seems like I've got to eat, I'm always hungry, then I'm not going to start them out intermittent fasting. That's hopefully something that we can move towards down the road, but I'm going to start them out eating every 3 to 4 hours so we can get that until we can build up the metabolic flexibility. And then over time, I just tell them, hey, listen to your body. If you don't feel hungry, and I see this all the time, after a week, the person's like, I have that morning keto protein shake, and then like I don't think I can eat at 12. Like I'm so full, and I'm like, great. I'm like, then let's wait till you're hungry. Have something available, so when you actually start to feel hungry, then go ahead and eat. And a lot of times they're fine waiting till dinner, and so it's just kind of a natural process that develops.
That's the best. Like, of all of the things that I love about keto, I mean, the spirituality piece is really cool, but that metabolic flexibility and just like
Yeah.
not having to care about like food all the time. Like, I had hypoglycemia. I had to eat every 2 hours. I had snacks in my bag all of the time. It was so much energy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So much thought that goes into it.
Oh,
You have to build your whole life around it. I remember when I was a personal trainer in my early 20s, it was like I had to have a big protein shake right before I went to bed. Then I wake up in the morning and I had to have like this big bowl of Quaker oatmeal squares with blueberries and peanuts on it. And it was like my whole life revolved around what I was going to eat, eating 6 meals a day.
yeah. I can't go back to that life. It's too much work. Okay. So, what are the mistakes that you see your clients, specifically women, making over and over again with keto? Like, they're just fake.
Well, like I said before, definitely the stress level and poor sleep habits. I think those are really, really big mistakes that are made. Also, especially with women, it kind of depends on if they're still menstruating or not. But what I find is for women who are menstruating, oftentimes we may need to do some carb cycling, particularly during different phases of their cycle. Like in the follicular phase, we may do, which is kind of the first 14 days of the cycle. The body's needing more estrogen during that period of time, and estrogen responds to insulin. And so we may need to bump up carbs just a little bit. Okay. And oftentimes we'll do something like 1 carb day, right? And see how they do with that, right? Where they're doing higher amount of carbs, maybe 80 to 150 grams, depending on how they feel on that day, and just kind of see how they do. And then we might do 6 days, of lower carb. And so we're kind of trying to find the right carb cycling approach for those individuals. And then usually the back end of their cycle. So like when we look at the cycle, the first half, menstruation is usually like the first 4 or 5 days. Okay. So, and then you hit ovulation. And then that's kind of the second half takes place day 15 to 28. Theoretically, everybody's like a little bit different and unique, but that's called the luteal phase. And typically that phase, the person responds better to low carb. So they usually do better low carb there. So you may notice even that you're craving more carbs in that beginning phase of the cycle. So I try to have the woman just pay attention to that, listen to that, and carb cycle appropriately. And I find that to be really good. And if the person just feels great, low carb, which is I see often as well, then I just tell them to be aware of it. But like, doesn't mean they have to carb cycle just because, we have, these natural rhythms in the body and you have more estrogen in that first half of the cycle. Doesn't mean you have to bump it up. If you're feeling good in ketosis, then keep it going. Just be aware of it. So I think that's a big thing. Not getting enough electrolytes, I find to be a huge problem across the board, and not hydrating well. So I tell my people to make sure that when you wake up in the morning, start your day with water and electrolytes. We are bioelectric beings, meaning that literally the information flows through electrical currents in our body, and we conduct electricity through water and electrolytes. So grab a little bit of like pink Himalayan salt or Redmond's real salt, some sort of really good salt, and just put a pinch in your water. Drink 16 ounces of water. You can, if you want to take it to the next level, you can put lemon in there, which has a whole bunch of different great compounds, vitamin C, bioflavonoids, potassium, all kinds of really good stuff. And drink 8 to 16 ounces of water like within the first 10, 15 minutes of waking up. Okay, you may just start with 4 ounces. You may feel nauseous after that, but work your way up. Over time, you'll kickstart that natural hydration mechanism. And what I find for many people, because food is so prevalent in our society, and whenever we eat, eating itself is an addictive process. We actually stimulate dopamine, which makes us feel really good. And I think that's a great thing. But because food is so prevalent in our society compared to what our ancestors had, like we can eat literally all day long. I could sit in my house. I have so much food in here. I could sit in here and just eat for like the next week without stopping. It's like, and just stimulate those dopamine pathways. So we lose, there's a part of our hypothalamus, which is like the antenna in our brain. And in that area of our hypothalamus, the hunger center and the thirst center are right next to each other. And the brain has this this kind. The brain is plastic, and it will actually start to change and shape itself based on our actions and our habits. And so we actually start to get some of this hunger center moving into the thirst center. And so we start actually confusing when we're really thirsty and needing minerals with the idea that we're hungry and oftentimes craving sugar or craving some sort of like a sweet comfort food. And so I always want my clients, I want people to regain their natural thirst mechanisms. And so between meals, we're always trying to drink. And I will tell people, make it a goal to drink 16 ounces of water. So if you eat a meal, wait an hour so you can have your food actually digest properly without diluting your stomach acid and digestive juices. But after that, you should be drinking at least 16 ounces of water before your next meal. And ideally, cutting that off at least 15 minutes before you start your next meal. And for some people, it's really hard at first, but over time, they regain their thirst mechanisms. I mean, for me, it's easy for me to drink 48 ounces of water between meals, if not more. I'll oftentimes drink a gallon of water before I even eat anything in the day. And it just makes me feel so good when I'm hydrated and I've got the electrolytes. I feel really good and really on top of the world. And so regaining that sense of thirst and getting the right electrolytes in can make a huge difference.
I really hope you're enjoying today's episode. I'd love to see where you're listening from. You can snap a pic and tag me at Leanne Vogel or leave a review for the show on your favorite podcast player. It helps me out tremendously. Okay, back to the good stuff.
I totally agree with you. So I'm from Canada, so we use liters. So I drink 4 liters a day, which I just had to go to Google, and it's 135 ounces. And that's me
more
like
than a gallon.
Years.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're rocking it, Leanne.
Oh yeah. But
you're in the gallon club.
The gallon club. Oh my gosh, I need a sticker for my water bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
But I find the easiest way for me to get there, because I like the action of drinking out of a mug. So I make a lot of like Tulsi tea, herbal teas, and I find they're even really good for my skin. Like when I drink more tea and herbal things and I'm just sitting there with my mug and drinking tea, maybe it's because I'm Canadian, even when it's like triple digits in Ohio right now, I'm like, where's my tea? And I find it's so much easier for me to get to my amount by drinking out of a mug. So if anyone's listening and they're like, glasses, water bottle, blah, I agree with you. And I like mugs, so you might want to try that too.
I'm with you on that. Warm drinks are great. Warm drinks, a lot of people find that warm drinks are just more appetizing, especially you're in Canada. Here in Georgia, I drink warm drinks most of the time in the morning, actually, because we keep our house, even in the summer, like now, we'll keep our AC down at night to sleep better. So when I wake up in the morning, I get up first in the house and I've got a pullover on and things like that. It's cold. And I want something warm. So it just makes sense. And actually warm water will naturally stimulate your migrating motor complex in your gut. So getting good bowel movements, I didn't even touch on that, but I also see a lot of women with constipation issues. And again, that could be a thyroid issue, but warm water in the morning, warm lemon water, warm herbal tea can really do a great number in helping move the bowels. And I think getting a really high quality bowel movement, 1 or 2 high quality bowel movements in the first few hours of the day will set you up for so much success for the rest of the day. You just feel like this huge load that literally was lifted. And just all the fermentive byproducts that come from feces that's sitting in your gut. That just puts a lot of stress on your body, on your immune system, creates more inflammation, can really cause more brain fog, more mental sluggishness. So getting that really good bowel movement and hydration is a really huge component of that will set you up for success for your day.
I totally agree. It's almost like, that old drawing of Mickey Mouse way back in the day, and he's just whistling like by the train and he's like, that he's in, that's what I imagine, like 2 good bowel movements before work with some tea, and I'm that Mickey Mouse.
Life is good. Yes.
And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, you can find me at drjockers.com, just drjockers.com. And of course, on my YouTube, Facebook, all the different social channels as well.
I love it. We'll make sure to include all of those links in today's podcast extra, which you can get at healthfulpursuit.com/podcast/E90. And thanks again for coming on the show, David. I really appreciate it.
Leanne, I always love talking with you. Just such a great, stimulating conversation, and just such an honor and a privilege to be on your show. Love what you're doing with it.
Thank you so much. Oh, thanks. I'm blushing now.
Thanks for listening to the Keto Diet Podcast. Join us again in a couple of days to discover more Keto for Women secrets for your fat-fueled life. Music for the Keto Diet Podcast provided by Yechi. Follow Jacob on Instagram at Yechi_official and on Spotify as Yechi. That's YECHI. The Keto Diet Podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Keto Diet Podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representations or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.